Well, good evening. How are you all today? And welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. Um, I think I'm going to call this one, and people are going to think it's clickbait, but it's not. I think I'm going to call it Prepping for Apocalypse and Doom. That sounds pretty dramatic. And it sounds like uh, maybe something you'd hear from, elsewhere, but not usually here. But I'm going to talk about that today. But you're going to find that it's not the normal. It's not a clickbait at all. It's something that I just discovered today, or was made aware of. I didn't discover it. I didn't invent it. I just became aware of something today that was very interesting. Most people in the preparedness world, some couple of them preppers, that here we call them PMPs, preparedness minded people, because I kind of try to shy away from that prepper label for everybody who's new. By the way, welcome to everybody who's new. I can't believe how many new people we're having join. It is great to have you. So many from y'all up in Canada. Oh, it makes me shiver sometimes to think about you all up there, but it's great to have you. Um, but there is this tendency in the preparedness world to concentrate on the very basic, the very elemental aspects of preparedness. Being able to run out into the woods and survive. Not like what I write about in my books. For those of you who have read my books, you know that I get into a lot of detail, a great deal of detail, about not living rough, not necessarily, running out and having to live in a lean-to, but how to prepare for, survive, and thrive in a post-apocalyptic world. And that is the result of proper preparedness, right? And by the way, I'm almost done with book number 7. Yes, I am, for those of you who have been asking. But there is this idea among most preparedness-minded people, at least at this strata, that preparedness is about preparing to live rough, preparing to live without much, with the very basics. I told a story today. No, I'm gonna hold up on that. But you might be interested to know, and I'm going to talk about this tonight, that preparedness and study of apocalypse and essentially doom is being studied at a very high academic level. Did you know that? I wasn't aware of that myself. If you were, you know more than I do. So tell me what your channel is, and I'll watch it. I had a very interesting thing started my day today. Got up, checked the things that I checked the news, checked the couple of things, checked my emails. And there was an email there for me, from an old student of mine, an old friend of mine, but a student, whom I had not heard from in probably 20 years. And the reason that I hadn't heard from him is because he went off to be a world-renowned scientist. I'm sure if he sees this, I don't know if he'll say, he'll argue that point with me or not, but he's an exceptional person, and he wrote me. Well, I'll give you just a bit about it. He is, I'm sure, still an exceptional person. He is a person for whom I have the highest regard. He is one of those people who are so smart that I always enjoyed talking to him or listening to him, not because I could understand half of what he said, but because I always felt smarter after hearing it, right? He is the only person I ever, well, I won't say gave, whoever earned a black belt from me. And, I had a lot of people quit taking when I used to teach martial arts because they said, oh, we'll never get a black belt from him. And they were right, because I don't believe in giving away stuff. He earned it. And he went on to become a physicist, and I'm not sure. I know that he was into cosmology and theoretical physics and astrophysics and all of these things, and went off to, he is a professor at a major university in Australia. And I made a video about him this morning, shortly after I read that email from him, because it reminded me of the things that he went through to get his degree while doing other things. And it's on the Stonemont level, because the Stonemont level of the Patreon, and that's what, did I say that? It's on the Patreon channel. And a lot of people don't come over there. You're missing out if you don't. But, do what's right for you. I put it on the Stonemont level because it is personal information, something from my personal life. But I made it about him, and what I recall of his situations, what it took for him to get through and become what he is today. And I what did I name it? What it takes, because you've heard me say on here oftentimes, there's a lot of talkers out there. A lot of people want to do something, wish they could do something, gonna do something, whatever, but not that many who will do what it takes to get it done. And so I put that up on the Stonemont level. It is well worth the watch. So anyway, he did become. He is a professor of physics, as I said. And so I got this email from him, very interesting email. He said he had run across some things from the old days, made him think of me, and then out of curiosity, he started finding out, see if he could run down what I'd been up to for 20 years, something to that effect, and couldn't find anything for a long time. And then he started searching for Stephen Smith, because he had been searching under the name by which he knew me back then. And when he finally found me, and I'm going to do one. When I'm done with this, I'm going to do one. I'll probably just put it up on the Stonemont level again, because I'll have to take a couple of things down off this wall that I was going to cover. It's personal information, and show them, and I saved that for Stonemont level. And it talks about what's my real name. What do people know me by? A couple of you out there know, but most of you don't. And if you're interested, if you're not interested, if you couldn't care less, that's okay too. Okay. But interestingly enough, once he found that, and he found, I don't know if he found my books first or the channel first or whatever, I don't know. But once he found it, he says, well, that's very interesting. He thought, because he has just completed a fellowship. He is a fellow of the University of Heidelberg. He went over there for a year, I guess. Put on my papers. Of the Center for Apocalyptic and Post-Apocalyptic Studies at the university, or at Heidelberg University. So I'm going to read you a couple things here from CAPAS, Center for Apocalyptic and Post-Apocalyptic Studies. I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs from their About Us, and then we're going to talk about it for a minute. Okay, it says, Center for Apocalyptic and Post-Apocalyptic Studies at Heidelberg University focuses on the effects of catastrophes and end-time scenarios on societies, individuals, and environments. Thereby, CAPAS employs a transdisciplinary research approach toward the production of a differentiated description of radical changes and breakdowns in the past and present. Furthermore, the center aims to explore, understand, and challenge the reactions to apocalyptic scenarios as well as post-apocalyptic visions of the time after the catastrophe, taking into account their respective historical and cultural contexts. By focusing on social mechanisms and coping strategies of crisis through the prism of the apocalypse, CAPAS provides applied knowledge and successful and failed responses to existential threats and their consequences. On this basis, the center contributes to topical debates on potential ecological and social breakdown. Campus thus sees itself as a platform for reflection on perceived doom that helps to strengthen societal and political resilience to end-of-life scenarios of all kinds and to anticipate social risks. Okay, did you get all that? I tell you, if you didn't, just go to campus.uniheidelberg.de. Look up, go back and hear what I said and look it up. You'll get it's very fascinating. I read through the website quite a bit, and boy, I would love to have the opportunity to go through their curriculum over there. I think it would be very well. I think it'd be fascinating. The point that I want to make on this is that, as you've heard me say before, I think that too many in the preparedness world approach it too simplistically. So what am I saying? It's too simple, right? They don't consider the many levels. I'm gonna look back on this. Are you kidding me? You couldn't say simplistically, but people have a tendency, I think, to keep themselves at a level that they can easily understand, and what that does, it limits your growth. And I have a lot of people ask me a lot of questions. They say, well, why don't you explain more about this, and why don't you explain more about this, and why don't you teach us another way to start a fire, or why don't you don't make lean-to, all that kind of stuff. I know that's a comfortable place to be. But I have always, and again, I'll refer to my books. I'll let you know how to get my books here in a minute. I want to make this point first, that you shouldn't hamstring yourself. You should not hold yourself on certain basic levels. I mean, do you do that in anything else in life? And many people do. Okay, I understand that. Many people reach a point of comfort, of contentment, and they don't have any, desire or impulse to go any farther than that. But that's when I talk about at the end, our tagline is, we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. And I say, you're going to live as well tomorrow as you prepare to live. And a lot of people, just don't get that. When I talk about being totally self-sufficient, when I talk about being totally self-reliant, when I talk about being totally prepared, too often I get the people to say, it's impossible to be totally prepared. Well, that's a matter of opinion, but usually it shows. And in my books, I explain as close as I can how you become totally prepared for anything. And those who have read my books, those who have read through the whole series 5 times will tell you, yeah, he does explain it. And it's in a great story, by the way. But those who refuse to believe that hold themselves down. And just like anything, your growth depends on your wanting to grow in knowledge and understanding. And that kind of hinges on a couple of things. It hinges on your creativity, it hinges on your imagination, it hinges on what you know, and it hinges on your desire to know more and be a problem solver in your own life. So what this showed me, and I found this very interesting, that the things that we talk about on a fairly low level are being studied at a very high academic level. And I'm not saying that everybody needs to go off to the, Heidelberg University and try to get into this program. I'm sure it's very difficult. Matter of fact, I saw on their website, they only take 10 people a year into their fellowship programs. So we ain't getting in, most likely. Not until we get our PhDs in something interesting. Maybe some of you have them out there. You might apply. Go over there, and if you're able to get in, let me know. But it shows, when I always talk about the spectrum, you have the very simple over here to the very complicated over here. Too many people hold themselves down here, not realizing that there is so much more to learn. The only person who thinks they know it all is the person who doesn't know much, because they don't realize how much there is above them. They have no idea. I used a quote from the Yogi Bear movie the other day when the mayor was telling the young park ranger, he says, no, you need to be in charge while you're still new and still know everything. The more we know, the more we realize we don't. But then we start to realize, the vastness of possibilities. The vastness of knowledge that we don't know, the vastness of things that we can improve on. And so that's what I found very interesting about this. I used to jokingly say that I have the smartest viewers in YouTube land. But we've had a lot of people join us from some other big channels lately. And I have to say, they're smart too. So I'm not going to say that anymore. I'll only say it jokingly. But I will say we have the nicest. But we do. You all are very, very sharp out there. So when we think about, and I'm not going to try to, explain any more about preparing for apocalypse or doom or anything like that. What I'm saying is I think this should help people realize how much more there is to learn, how much more study there is being done on these subjects than most people realize, right? When I wrote my first book, I never thought, and I'll get them out here for those of you who aren't familiar with them. I never thought, and I've told this story before, I wrote it basically just starting off as a short story, as a way to answer questions, because this was after Doomsday Prepper came out and all that, and some of it was kind of interesting, but a lot of it made preppers look stupid, and and so it kind of made people more interested. People started asking me questions about it, and I'd answer them, and they kept asking more questions, and I'd answer that, and the more it went on and on, it became quite a conversation. So I thought, well, I'll write a short story and print it up, probably 20 pages or something like that, answering all the questions that I usually have people ask me. And, I'll print it off, make copies, and hand them a copy. So I started writing, and a lot of you know that I write on my phone because I can't type. And I started tapping out in my little notes program. And a year later, I had 90-some thousand words, and it turned out I realized, well, I guess I had a book, and that came out to be The Reversion. Okay, and that came out in 2017. And I never expected anybody to buy it. I bought several copies, one for my mother, one for my wife, and several more for my kids that I was going to give them to them when they grew up. And darn if it didn't start selling all over the world. And just sold big. And then one person said, and I thought I'd pretty much covered everything that I needed to cover. I mean, it's 90-some thousand words, right? And then there was a comment. No, it was a review on Amazon, and it said, "I can't wait to see what happens next with such and such." And they mentioned something. I don't remember what it was. And I said, "What happens next?" What do you mean next? And that means another book. I didn't know. I thought I'd said everything that I wanted to say. And so I got thinking about it. I said, well, I don't know. I wrote one book. I was surprised that it became a big success. Could I do it again? So I took a shot, did it again, came out with a second book that just covered so many more things that I hadn't covered in the first book. And the second became the third and the fourth and the fifth and the sixth. And it's now the Stonemont series. For anybody who's new, yeah, I'm the guy that wrote these. I get a kick every now and then. Somebody will come on and says, I read those books. I didn't know you were the one that wrote them. Yeah, that's me. The reversion, the revival, the renewal, an appeal to heaven, the blessings of freedom, and hostages to fortune. And the seventh one will be done in just a couple of weeks. I have announced the title over on Patreon, but I haven't announced it worldwide yet. And in these books are more than you can imagine. And I'm not saying that just to try to build myself up. What I'm saying is that the average person does not think far enough down the road. Okay, because it can't be the same thing over and over and over again. You know, you're not going to have repetitive gunfights and repetitive this and repetitive that and all violence and all this. I do write about the horrible things in here. I write about cannibalism and slavery and all the things that would happen after a collapse of the world. But what's more complicated is the human aspect of it, the rebuilding of resources and societies and things like that. And I've had people tell me they've read through the whole series 5 times and are still coming up with lessons they missed the first 4 times. So, you know, yeah, you can get them on Amazon. You can get them on Amazon. They get them to you pretty quick. But I love it when people order them straight from me, and you can do that through my website, stonemont.us. Those links are down below, as is the link to the Patreon if you want to join us over there. And then if you order them directly from me, I get to sign them for you and put a little message in there, and I love to do that because I love my relationship with my readers. God has blessed me unbelievably, and I appreciate, and I love to do that. So that's how you do that. But the lesson there is I wanna just reiterate is don't hold yourself on a low level of preparedness. Yeah, beans, bullets, band-aids, buddies, you know, some other things that we come up with that start with a B. Yeah, that's all good. That's subsistence living. If that's all you want to do, you know, but that's not all I want to do. One of the things that I said in the first book is Jim Wyatt said, if it all came to an end, he didn't want to notice. And some people will say, well, that's impossible. And I will say, that's because you haven't thought enough about it and aren't willing to put the work into it. And because you are guaranteed the effects of the causes you choose. That's kind of the story that I put up about my student on the Stonemont level. He put in the work. So many people aren't willing. But, you know, you're going to get exactly what you prepare to get. And the day may come in your lifetime, may not come in your lifetime, may come in your kid's lifetime. But you're, as I used to, and this reminds me, when I used to teach martial arts, I would explain to my students that you are not meant to be simply the final receptacle of this information, but to be the conduit through which it flows to others. You know, having information, having skills carries with it, if you choose, and I think you should, a responsibility to pass it on. And the more you know, the more you understand, the more you're going to be able to help others. The more prepared you are, the more you're going to be able to help others. And whether or not you find a religious basis in that, I think that there is an innate understanding among most people that we do have responsibility for those who we can help, right, when they need it. So those are my thoughts tonight. You know, the study of apocalypse and doom is being studied by people far above YouTube, and I found that fascinating. So go to that. You might find that interesting. It is the Karen Hamburger Center for Apocalyptic and Post-Apocalyptic Studies at Heidelberg University. And I'll post, like I always do, when I put this video on Patreon, I'll put the link to that over there. So you think about that, and it all comes down to this, and what I say often, probably you need to be playing a bigger game. Because if you're playing, small ball, if the big one hits, You're not going to be as ready as you'd like to be. Okay. And I'm going to do one. I'm going to get off here and make one for the people over on the Stonemont level of Patreon, revealing why I have two names and who knows me by which. That should be fun, right? Okay. You all have a good night, and remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. Put in the work if you want the results. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.